Okay, what I want to discuss here briefly is the concept of pH. pH is potential hydrogen or percentage hydrogen, and we know how important pH is. If we think about if someone has a pool, people are always checking the pH of the water. Women especially understand in terms of vaginal health, vaginal pH. And if the pH is off, there could be bacterial overgrowth or vaginosis, etc. So in terms of the body, there's a trending movement that I'm aware of through my patients that I take care of about drinking pH water and drinking high pH water because, cancer cells can't thrive in an alkaline environment. This is what the selling point of that is. Now, there is no, at this point, real evidence proving that or showing that, but there is some evidence that consuming foods that are of color could give benefit to people, right? Red, like Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those foods tend to be more alkaline forming, right? So there's a big difference between acidic foods and alkaline foods, and acid forming foods and alkaline forming foods. For example, a lemon is acidic out here, but when we consume it, it can change the pH of certain tissues. Like if you were to drink water and squeeze fresh lemon in it and drink that throughout the day and then check your urinary pH could be 4, 4.5. And then after drinking lemon water for the day, you can check your urinary pH and it may change to 8 or 9. But just because you're changing your urinary pH doesn't mean that you're changing your overall pH, right? If you look at and consider the pH of blood, blood is around 7.35 to 7.45 pH, which is an average of 7.4. And you don't want major shifts in that pH. You don't want it to go to 9. You don't want it to go to 3. You could die as a result of this. So every body tissue has a different pH, right? So your stomach could be 1 or 2 or 2.3 pH with hydrochloric acid in it. We could look at the pancreatic juice that could be slightly alkalinic, 7.5 to 8.0. We could look at tears. We could look at the skin, right? The skin could be on the low end of acidic or approaching alkaline or slightly alkalinic or basic at 7.5. Do you want your skin pH to be 2.3 like the stomach pH with the hydrochloric acid? So if you drink high pH water like 10, 11, and 12, which is alkaline basic water, and you put it into your body, the only thing you're going to be doing is throwing off the pH of your stomach, right? It's not going to affect vaginal pH. It's not going to affect your skin pH. It's not going to affect your pancreatic juice or bile in the gallbladder. It's going to affect water going directly into your stomach, and how dangerous that can be, because if you look at the right, the stomach pH should be about 2.3 because hydrochloric acid is an acid. That's what you see here, HCl, hydrochloric acid. Now, in the stomach, we have chief cells and we have parietal cells. Chief cells make pepsinogen. Anything that ends in -ogen, I want you to always remember, is inactive, and it's got to be activated. And pepsinogen, which is inactive pepsin, right? It's pepsin ready to be used, but it's not in the usable form yet. Pepsin is, and that's a digestive enzyme that breaks down protein. Now, what makes that conversion is the acidic environment. It's hydrochloric acid. Is what's produced by the parietal cell is hydrochloric acid, as well as intrinsic factor. Now, hydrochloric acid converts pepsinogen into pepsin so you could break down protein. If you start drinking alkaline water and you start to raise the pH, right? pH is 0 to 14, 0 to 6.9999999, that is an acid, and then 7 is neutral, and above 7 to 14 is an alkaline or a base. You start drinking alkaline water, you start raising the pH towards an alkaline. Now you throw off your body's ability to convert pepsinogen into pepsin. Major problem, because now you can't break down protein. If you don't have protein, how do you make neurotransmitters? How do you make some hormones? How do you make skin, nails, hair, muscle, skin? You see? Now, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach also helps to maintain the microbiome of the stomach. It keeps it in checks and balances. You start playing around with the pH and raise the pH, now you can have bacterial overgrowth. That's a problem. You also need an acidic environment in the stomach in order for B12, vitamin B12, to bind to intrinsic factor. If you don't have an acidic environment, you can't properly absorb B12. Now you look at all the issues that can arise from B12 deficiency, like anemia or methylation issues, and you can't produce neurotransmitters and hormones and DNA synthesis and RNA synthesis. So this is a pretty big thing, right? And you can't absorb iron properly. So please, please be aware that every body tissue has a different pH for good reason. And you cannot change the pH of every tissue and make it alkaline, nor do you want to. Drinking alkaline water all the time is like taking and drinking antacids. You can only absorb calcium in an acidic environment. So there are cases of osteoporosis from people who use antacids or that consume sodium bicarbonate or Alka-Seltz or anything that raises the pH to an alkaline environment. Okay, so hopefully this increases your awareness about pH, different body tissues that have different pH and should contain and maintain those pHs. And the body does have different buffering systems. So if it becomes acidic, it can raise and become alkalinic. If it becomes too alkalinic, your body has mechanisms to make it a little bit more acidic.